Hello and welcome to the Lifeway podcast. I'm David Gadberry, the lead pastor of Lifeway Church here in Kingfisher County. And man, if you do not have a church home or you're looking for a church home and you live anywhere in this county, I want to personally invite you to come to Lifeway. Listen, we have a group of people at this church that are just so loving and hospitable, and they go out of their way to embrace and accept new people. And so, man, if you're looking for some hope and some encouragement and some strength, and just looking for maybe a new life, maybe a new way of thinking, maybe a new challenge in your life, come to Lifeway. We would love to have you as part of the family and love to grow together. So you're invited. We have services at 6:30 on Wednesday night and worship experience on Sunday at 10 a.m. And we'd love for you to be a part. So with that, I just want to say thank you for being a part of our leadership family, and I hope that this ministers to you. And if it does, please feel free to like and comment and ask questions and hit that little bell so that you get an alert every single time we release a new episode, which is about once a week. And we'd love for you to be a part. And you can also get on our app. So we'd love for you to download our app, because all of our Lifeway leadership episodes are there, and all of our messages, all the content about our church. And so you'll see here how you can download the app, and we'd love for you to do that. So thank you for being a part of our leadership community. God bless you. Okay, today we want to talk about something that is really important for a bibliocentric view of leadership. You know, that's what we talk about here on Lifeway Leadership, is we're always wanting to see the world through the lens of the Word instead of seeing the Word through the lens of the world. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, he says, "I beg of you, brothers, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice that's holy and acceptable unto the Lord, and be not conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may be the proof of what is good and acceptable and perfect in the will of God." He says, don't be like the world, be like Jesus. It's very important for us to get this, and it's very important for us to believe it and live it. And so we want to be that living sacrifice that's given to God as worship. And we want to do it in a way where we see the world through that lens, through the biblical lens, through the Christocentric lens. Now, this idea that I'm talking about today is the idea of trust. So it's a leadership concept if you think about it. The test of trust is what I want to talk to you about, because here's the truth. We cannot be effective in leadership if we don't develop trust and if we don't trust. Trust is a significant component of being able to move the dial, being able to move people from one point to the next, being able to lead in an appropriate way, being able to care for the things you need to care about, care for the people that you need to care about. So today I want to talk to you about trust, or the test of trust. Trusting God is not proven in what you say, but it's revealed in what you do when you don't understand. I love this passage of scripture. I use it a lot around this time of year because we have young people graduating from high school and college. And I feel like it's so important for them. But to be truthful, it's important for every believer every day of our life, because it really does lay the parameters for what it's like to worship God and to live for God. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. And, let me go back and read that again. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Now, I want you to understand what that means. It doesn't mean that He's going to tell you which way to turn or tell you which way to go. No, what the language there is, make your paths straight, is He's saying, if you'll trust me, if you'll rely on me, if you'll acknowledge me, if you'll adhere to me, then what I will do is, if the mountain's too high, I'll bring it low. If the valley's too low, I'll bring it high. If the path is crooked, I'll straighten it out. So that's God's way of saying, look, if you trust me, I'll line your life out for better than what you would have if you did it yourself. Don't lean onto your own understanding, but trust in God. You know, a great story about this is Genesis, Abraham and Isaac. God blessed Abraham with a son, but then after a certain amount of years, God required that son back from Abraham. He said, I want you to take him to Mount Moriah and I want you to sacrifice him to me. Well, God had no intentions of actually requiring that of him, but he was trying to test trust. Abraham, do you trust me? And Abraham trusted God so much that when he took Isaac to the top of that mountain, he had every intention of sacrificing him. He said this, he said, he took that knife, he took the wood, he took the everything that he needed to build the altar. They went up to the top of the mountain, he and Isaac together, and he told his servants to stay at the bottom of the mountain, but he said, we will be back. In other words, he included Isaac in that because we find out in the book of Hebrews that Abraham fully expected that if he was to go through with this, because God had told him that Isaac was the promised seed, that he would raise him from the dead. So he knew one way or the other that boy was coming back down that mountain with him. That's how much he believed God. That is trust. In other words, God, I trust you. Explicitly and implicitly, I trust you. In every way, I trust you. I believe what you say. I believe what you want. I believe what you want to do. You know, everyone says they trust God until God asks for something that they don't understand. And then trusting God can be kind of hard. It sounds good in theory, but trust gets tested in reality. And God will always lead you into moments where your understanding runs out. Listen, this is true. This is true in life. God will take you to places where at some point you go, man, this is beyond me. I don't know how to finish this. I don't know how to complete this. I don't know what to do with this. Because trust begins where your understanding ends. This is why Proverbs 3 tells us, don't lean onto your own understanding. Now, before I have any of you who are intellectuals back out of this and say, well, you're saying don't have any common sense or don't use your mind or don't be intellectual. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that if you really are intellectual, then you understand that God's finiteness or infiniteness is far more than our finiteness can understand. At some point and at some level, he becomes incomprehensible to us, period. And not only that, but many things in life become incomprehensible to us. And where our intellect becomes foolishness is when we think that that's not the case. When we think that there are things that we can always understand and we will always figure it out and we will always know. It's just not true. And if you're really smart, like you think you are and you say you are, you will acknowledge that we are always learning and we are always developing and we are always growing. And if we ever stop that, if we ever stop being curious, and if we ever stop thinking that we don't know everything and we need to learn more, then we have become fools and we are on our way to death. And so I want to encourage you, don't think that when God says lean not to your own understanding, that he's saying don't use your intellect. The Bible also says that we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So it's important that we understand God is not saying or suggesting that we should not use the mind that he gave us. But he is saying that there's going to come a point where you don't understand what to do. And you need to not lean on your understanding and try to press through that. You need to trust God and believe him and believe his word, regardless of whether you understand it or not. So trust requires surrender. It just requires us saying, I give up. That's why it says lean not to your own understanding. It means you won't have all the answers. You won't see the full picture. You won't feel in control. Abraham didn't get a full explanation. He got an instruction. And if you'll notice this about Abraham, he lived his life that way. When God called him out from his family, he didn't even tell him where he was going. He said, I'll tell you when you get there. That's how God works sometimes. It's been said that God will show you the first step, but he doesn't always let you see the whole staircase. If you need full clarity before obedience, you'll never fully follow God. There's a scripture in Ecclesiastes, I can't remember the text right now, but it says this: if you wait for great weather to plant, you'll never reap a harvest. Because the weather's never going to be just exactly perfect. You're always going to have the chance and option for some weather happening. But at some point, you got to plant, whether the weather's good or not. So if you want to harvest, because if you don't put that seed in the ground, you're not getting a harvest, right? So sometimes we have to wait for things to be perfect before we'll do anything. There's no faith involved in that, and there's no result coming from that except mediocrity and a lack of result. So trust is proven through action. Trust is not agreement. It's not emotion. It's not intention. Trust is obedience. It's plain and simple. Abraham didn't just believe God. He walked up the mountain. Real trust moves your feet. Now think about that. Real trust doesn't stay here. Real trust gets down here. Trust lives where the rubber meets the road. God provides on the other side of trust. You know, this is one of the problems we have, is we can't see the other side of obedience. We can't see the other side of sacrifice. And we would say to ourselves, well, if I just knew how this was going to turn out, I would definitely not even hesitate. I would just go for it. But that's not how life works. And that's not how faith works. It's not how trust works. Sometimes you just have to take the step. I like what John Maxwell says. He says that sometimes you have to jump off the mountain and build the airplane on the way down. Provision didn't come before obedience, it came after. When Isaac asked his father, he said, hey, we've got everything for this sacrifice, but we don't have the sacrifice. Abraham said to him, God will provide himself a lamb. And when they got to the top and he was about to take Isaac's life, there was a ram in the thicket. God stopped him and said, don't you hurt that child. And he went and got the ram and he made the sacrifice. But the provision came after the obedience. You know, some of you are waiting on provision, but God is waiting on obedience. Maybe you need to go back in the last place God asked you to do something or told you to do something. Maybe you need to go back and do that, and then provision will be a result of that. Sometimes we're waiting on God to do something. He's waiting on us. So ask yourself this: where is God asking me to trust him right now? In my life, where is God asking me to trust him right now? My question to you would even be more serious than that. Are you engaging God on a level where he's asking you to trust him with something? Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that I need to release? What am I afraid of? What am I scared of? Why will I not let this go? Why can't I move forward? Maybe ask yourself, what step of obedience am I delaying? I know it's what I need to do. I know it's what God's saying to do. I know it's what the word says to do, but I'm just not ready to do it. Well, I encourage you, take the step. Release control. Trust God with the outcome. You can't control the outcome anyway. It's beyond your ability to control it. Just think of it logically. No matter what you do in life, no matter what it is, you cannot control the outcome. You can only control the inputs. That's it. And so in this case, obedience, trust, faith, that's the input. And God takes care of the outcomes. So trust is not comfortable. Trust is costly. But trust always leads to transformation. Because when you trust God fully, you finally see him clearly. God bless you. Have a great week. Go out and live well.